Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's call to order the October 18th, 2022 regular board meeting for the Tuscaloosa City Schools. If we could have a period of silence, please, and we'll follow that by the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening, everyone. I can't believe I arrived here after the distinguished Mr. Simmons over there. I know. Okay. Sorry about that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
before we move to accept the agenda, I just want to point out you were late.
Ask that you held in contempt. All right, may I have a motion to adopt the regular board meeting agenda as printed?
So moved. And second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That'll be approved. Item number 4, may I have a motion to approve the notes of the September 29th, 2022 board retreat and the minutes of the October 4th, 2022 regular board meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Those will be approved. Item number 5, recognize school board member academy achievements recipients. Dr. Daria.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I've said this to you all in the past, and in our meetings, that we thank you all for all the time you put in for serving this school system. It's not only Tuesday night meetings, it's all the things that come with serving, but one component of it is doing the training with AASB, and you all continue to do that at high levels. We have 2 members of the board that we want to recognize tonight on behalf of AASB who have both achieved level 1, Ms. Leslie Powell and Dr. Karen Thompson-Jackson. Certificate, ma'am.
Thank you.
2 rock stars.
Thank you both for your service.
Level 1, just the start of many. Yes, on behalf of the board, congratulations to you 2 fine ladies, and obviously, I will echo what Dr. Daria said. This board is awesome, so thank y'all for y'all's service and work. Item number 6, public comments on non-agenda items.
I don't see any.
Anybody?
Look like everybody
If it's
is.
not in here, does that mean there's not anybody?
Well, everybody in
wanting to
here
speak?
is us.
Yeah, of which there are none, which we're gonna go on to item 7. Informational reports from the superintendent and executive staff. 7A1, receive parent visitation update and community and family engagement information. Dr. Pope, good evening, sir.
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
First, I'd like to say last week we started our family, our parent days at the schools, and we had the middle schools and elementary schools. October 12th was for elementary schools, 13th was middle schools, and on the 19th is the high school. But we want to brag on some things. We had places like Arcadia had Hispanic Heritage Night Day with celebration, and we also had Woodland Forest did their STEM, robotic and STEM and SEL celebration during their parent visitation, and West Lawns had a game plan. And we also want to celebrate Verner's Career Day. But all of our schools did a great job celebrating parent visitation, but those were some of the ones that we highlighted during our visits. And as we start, TCS family engagement pretty much gonna be a very high level, 5-minute or less overview on our family engagement plan and what the work we started. Dr. Edwards is our family community engagement administrator, and she's also over homeless and 21st century community learning centers. She was going to do the presentation, but she was unable. She had to be at the State Department with a meeting. And Ms. Giles Brown is the federal programs director. When you think of family and community engagement, we talk about raising awareness, taking action, and celebrating success. So that RTC is things that stand out as what they use as a pretty much abbreviation as they're talking about the things in their plans for community and family engagement. So overview, action plan, pretty much starting out. This is all connecting the work for family and community engagement for our stakeholders from our strategic plan, making sure that we're connecting those home, community, and school, and making sure students are all successful. But in order to do that, we have to make sure all of our stakeholders are informed and aware, and we're all connected. We started back in 21 school year, 21-22 school year, and it's now started out in the fall of 22-23 school year. And those things that's up there is listed are basically talking about what our key components are. We're welcoming families, making sure families are actually included and feel welcome when they're coming into our buildings, but also our communication skills, working on how we are communicating to our families and with our families. And the whole big picture is making sure that shared power is there and noted, and our community and our families understand that we want to be embracing their knowledge level about their kids, but also share the power of making sure all of our kids are successful. And in doing so, we're creating a collaborative environment in the community. When we were thinking about the plan, in our strategic plan was all about what action steps could we put together and work. And we're a district that's all about looking at where things have actually proven to be successful. So we reached out with Scholastic FACE, and which is Family Community Engagement. And Dr. Karen Mapp is the person that is the researcher. She's the one that has all the proven results that says you're doing these things. You have a positive school community, and the community and family engagement process will connect and ensure that students are successful. And in doing so, we created a three-part workshop for our school teams. And when we say school teams, it comprises of all of our administrators and teachers, counselors, and then we also have some parents on board as well. So we have parents and community engagement partners on board with us. But the three-part workshop has the first one, reframing family engagement, the second one, redesigning what it looks like in your school, and the third one, engaging families in learning throughout the year. At any point, you all can stop me. The way we're working this out is making sure we think about how our clusters and our feeder zones are all built, and the best way to work with those, because we're working with the same families, and we're looking at what the parents and families of Central High School, more than likely they're connected to Martin Luther King Central Elementary School in Oakdale. So we're working through those feeder zones. So the feeder zone all are participating in those three-part interactive sessions, and they're learning and they're working, but it's all about the working, connecting as a feeder zone and not so much as an isolated or individual school, because we're thinking about our communities, our families, and our stakeholders, and how we're being successful in collaborating with one another. When we're thinking on what could be our impacts, and we're looking at negative and positive, but our positive impacts coming up with our students. Number one, our students will be successful. Our families will be more aware, equipped, and more knowledgeable of the things that we're not saying they're teaching, but they're knowledgeable about those things that's being done in the school, which can also support the work that's being done in schools and making that connection at home. And on the other side, the educators, if our educators are not as less, well, put like this, they're less stressed, they have the support of the parents, the family, and the community, then we can have a better, a positive teacher retention within our district. During session one, and remember session one was, the sessions are all built around their feeder zone. So during session one, this was the opportunity this is our very first session, happened. And during this session, the school teams got a chance to research, find out what best practices and strategies are in communities that are doing this well. They got a chance to engage in the work that they're doing. They got a chance to explore on those opportunities that we're not tapping into. And then they left there examining what their current reality is. In session 2, Dr. Mapp's whole process is built on the dual capacity framework, which is a 6 process model. And those 6 processes are bulleted there. I'm not going to read all 6 of them, but during the session 2, this is actually when the teams got a chance to look at what their current reality is. They got a chance to look and notice how they can do things differently in their building. So making it look like, examine what if the 6 processes are in place in their upcoming parent community event. Now is the time to redesign. So they got a chance to actually redesign what they're doing in their parent or community events and use that 6 process model to insert those plans and create an event that will be more successful than not having that design in place. Okay. And third one, the third session was all about if they can think of a problem or practice that's in their building, something that they are working on, but they really can't find the root cause or what is the solution to that problem, or we're dealing with families, maybe dealing with parents, maybe dealing with the, getting community involvement, but they had to leave there with a planned action, and they had to work with and develop action steps, action plans aligned to their ASIP development, because the ASIP has a part about the family community engagement that ties directly back to what our students need and making sure that we're putting things in place to ensure student learning. If you look at this part, the blue on the dark blue is what I used to think about parent with family and community engagement prior to these sessions, and what it, on the right side is, on my right side, is what I think about it now. So if you look, to give you an example, this is a TCS parent. Used to think parent involvement was about dissemination of information to parents. Well, now the goal should be, she's thinking more of the administrator. The goal should be active engagement of parents in their student learning. Engagement should look similar to how we engage students in our classroom. So that whole shift of what I used to think to what I think now is our goal. And each one of those, we have one for what the parents, we had one parent, what she used to think and how she think after the sessions, and also our teachers, so that their thinking shifted after this process occurred. Just some pictures of the Eastern Cluster, Western Cluster, and Northern Cluster as they were going through these processes, because this is the time when all the school teams were coming together working, because truly it is work. It's done here at TCTA. We have one coming up this week. But our next steps up here basically want to make sure we work with Scholastic and Dr. Edwards will be working closely with the individual schools, collaboration with the PR team, reaching out to our literacy grant team and our EL team, because we have some kids that are non-English speaking students that want to make sure we're connecting with those parents too, and collaborate with all of our stakeholders in a joint effort to enhance what we're doing currently. Again, as a district, we want to examine our practices and making sure that we are putting those 6 process models in place in everything that we do as well. So a parent presentation coming up, a spotlight for family engagement is going to be going around to the schools and doing more of those community forums and parent involvement sessions as well. And that's it. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Dr. Pope.
Thank
Very
you.
well done.
Good job.
I was just gonna make note of one thing, the supporting link that's on the agenda, you can't log into it.
Yes, we're going to turn it off. Right now, your email should work, but
Like, I print my stuff from, so like, you go by what's on the, you know,
okay. You talking about the link for this PowerPoint?
We just need a PowerPoint.
under supporting links, Tuscaloosa cities, it goes to SharePoint. When you click on
Yes.
it won't go anywhere.
Okay, we'll change the link to make it public.
Anybody else? Thank you, Dr. Pope. 7A2 is receive safety grant, project safe information.
Who's handling
Mr.
that?
Wilson, I'm actually going to take that. Dr. Schrod planned to be here, and she is with her mother, and all is well, but she is there with her, helping her. So I'm going to present this on her behalf. This is just information on the safety grant that we just received. This is $1 million over 3 years. And we applied for this almost 2 years ago. And the actions that we put into this grant that were approved come in and really supplement our safety processes and needs that we have in place. So we worked with our grant writer. This is the same grant writer that helped us secure the $4.5 million for the community literacy grant. So we're seeing great success working with him. We're actually working on a third grant now with him for support of our wraparound services at New Heights. So we're fingers crossed on that. Dr. Schrod and her team worked on this grant, and a big kudos to them on this with Tom Mills. But this will help us fund a safety officer, which you all have in place. This will now fund that. It will help do coordination of services with TPD, TFD, and EMA on doing actual exercises. It will help us take our threat assessment, which is a really important component in school safety, and help take the research and help build the platform that we've got, and then ongoing training for all faculty, staff, and students. So this $1 million that gets injected into our safety work is really allows us to take our safety work to the next level. And again, I just want to say a big congratulations and kudos to Dr. Schrod and the Learning Supports team, and then Tom Mills, our grant writer, who's helping us do this. We've got a webinar coming up in a week or so to kick this off and get rolling, and we're really fortunate to be one of the school systems to secure this grant.
Great job. And I think when this is what we envisioned the grant writers to be able to do when we talked about this a couple
Yeah,
of years ago.
we've had a lot of conversation on that,
Yes.
and we're just fortunate to have connected with an individual that is highly successful in doing this, and we're able to communicate what our needs are, and that's what we start with. We don't start with what grants are out there. We are clear with him that these are our needs, and safety is always our need. Literacy has been our need, and he takes those and he hunts out the grants and does a really good job using our information to do that. So thank you all for pushing that.
Excellent. Okay, 7A3, received March 20th, 2022 through September 30th, 2022. Report of all contractual agreements under $50,000. Mr. Duke, good evening, sir.
Mr. Chairman, as we do several times a year, those are dropped in assembly for the board's review, and we would like to ask that the board approve those.
Thank you, and board has a list of all those in their packet. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, 7B is, Mr. Duke, we're going to receive the financial reports for October 1, 2021 through August 31st, 2022. And all reports are reconciled through August 31, 2022.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, board members, superintendent, ladies and gentlemen, this is, of course, our 11th month of the year, through August 31st. Also, 91% of our budget year has now passed, and you can kind of see the year end coming into focus now. So this will kind of be a preview for September's that we'll present here in a couple weeks, but you'll start getting a good gauge of how we'll end FY22 that ended this past September 30th. And we'll take a brief look at sales tax and car tag tax. We will not look at property tax this time because there was no property tax collections. Those start back up in October. So it'll be a couple meetings from now when we'll start back looking at property tax. So we'll time out on that for a meeting or so. The revenues are again above budget, and that's thanks to our local revenues, of which property tax is one of them. This past year, sales tax continues to be healthy, as does car tag tax. Our expenses, as you'll see here, are tracking good and below budget. Again, we've benefited from some CARES funds that have allowed us to offset some things that we ordinarily pay out of the general fund. We've also had some, because of the labor market, some unfilled positions and unfilled sub positions, and you'll see where we've got some savings on one of our top line expenses that we really don't want to have savings in because we want people in those seats in the classrooms, but we have benefited financially from that as a byproduct. The All this is in getting ready for FY '23 when the state mandated minimum 4% raise, as high as about 20% raise goes into effect, and we pass that along across the board, not only to the state-funded employees, but the local funded employees. So the savings that you'll see on my general fund management report will be needed for the upcoming FY '23 year and beyond. The first slide here is sales tax. Again, another healthy month. This month is real reflective of what an average month has looked like the past 11 months, and that's about 1.8 million. And if you drift off to the prior years, if you get a chance, you'll notice that in FY '21 that was probably about 1.7. FY 2020 was about 1.6 or 1.5. So it's like the last 3 or 4 years we've gained an extra $100,000 a month per month. So that's good, and again, that'll be needed going forward. Year-to-date collections are up 10.7%. I don't know that we could ever have expected that, but I also would probably say we can't expect to see another 10% going forward. We'll just have to see. Car tag tax, as you'll see, the actual through 11 months there, the $2.4 million has already met what the prior year's 12 months collections were. So I'll say that September's collections will kind of be a bonus month because we've already collected what we did through 12 months last year. Again, car tag tax is like sales tax and property tax. That's local money. So even though this is not as much in total as sales tax, this goes to help do the things that we do locally over and above what's mandated by the state. The general fund management report, there's about 3 things I would like to call to your attention briefly. Up at the top, you'll see, excuse me, I got a box there, State Advancement and Technology Fund. It came in last year, I believe, in July. This year it came in August. So the reason I point that out is the current year month-to-date actual is only 4.9, where last year it was 7.7. So last year the advancement technology came in August. This year it had already come in June, I believe it was. So revenues didn't necessarily drop. It was just a timing difference of when that money came in. That was 2.9 million. Again, we got a couple of months ago. So if you'll drift back over to the left, you'll see that the year-to-date actual under state sources of revenue is tracking to end very close to budget. If you'll drift down under where you see the yellow target there on expenditures, I've got a note there of the tight range, and several of our categories are tracking almost right on budget, what we budgeted, and that's thanks to a lot of things. One of which is a good budget amendment and hard work in the accounting office. We got a great staff there, by the way, and then all the directors and superintendent helping us watch expenses and plan this stuff so that we got a smooth level of expenditures and no spikes, so to speak. I mentioned earlier that because of the labor market and not being able to fill positions in a lot of areas across the board, not just teachers, but even subs and everything. You'll see that top line, the instructional service, that's by far the biggest category. We've got a budgeted $60 million there, and we've only spent $51 million. So we're tracking about 5 or 6% below budget. Again, not what we want to be tracking at. We want to have those positions filled. But because of that, that's got us about 3% below budget. You see there in the red, we're right now at 88.16% of our expenditures, so we're about 3% below that 91%. So that's good as far as our budget, as far as at least the financial picture. One other thing I want to bring to your attention, and I've kind of got it over to the right there by the auxiliary services. We're starting to feel a little bit of the effects of this inflation and higher prices. You'll see that last year in auxiliary services, we spent about $434,000. Same month into this year, we spent $782,000. Several things make that up, but one of which is fuel prices. So you can see the cost of business is going up there in auxiliary services as well as operations and maintenance just above it. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. But right now, through 11 months, our expenses are about 3% below what we projected. Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to take any questions. Otherwise, that concludes my presentation.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Duke.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luke.
Okay, item 8 is introductions of motions, resolutions for a first reading, of which there are none. This brings us to item 9, the consent agenda. We have consent agenda items 9A, B, and C. Board may have a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Those will be approved. Item 10, regular agenda items for final adoption. 10A, approve superintendent's recommendation regarding changes in personnel. Good evening, Dr. Cameron.
Good evening. Good evening, Board. I have the superintendent's changes in personnel. I also have a supplemental list. I will go through both lists with you. Starting on page 1, we have 4 resignations. And I do want to pause here on number 4. We received that resignation today. Otherwise, the recommendation is going to be termination. We have 2 new support personnel, 1 20-day suspension of support personnel, 1 30-day suspension of support personnel, 4 part-time extended day tutors, and 1 22-23 contracted coach. On the supplemental list, you have 1 new certified personnel, 2 new certified personnel, and 7 part-time extended day tutors.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cameron. Board, are there any set-asides for a separate vote? Any set-asides for a separate vote? Hearing no set-asides, Board may have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendations.
So moved. Second.
Questions, discussion by number?
I have a question. On 7 and 8, quick question. Do they get, once they have this, do they get paid with this? Or they-
No, ma'am, that's without pay.
Got it.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or discussion? And Dr. Cameron, could you just reiterate number 4, please, what you were saying?
The resignation came in earlier today, but the recommendation was going to be termination of this employee.
Okay, thank you, sir. Board, may I have a call for a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Those will be approved. Brings us to item 11, unfinished business, of which there are none. Item 12 are general announcements. Board, there is a 8 o'clock press conference tomorrow at Central Office for the Shelton State Community College and Elevate agreement between TCS. Yes, sir. Great. Anybody can come, that would be awesome. Let's see, Liz, help me out here. Next, no board training next Tuesday, so nothing on y'all's calendar next Tuesday. So our next regular board meeting will be 2 weeks from tonight, November 1st. Does any other board member have any business to attend to?
Does the December 8th board hearing still stand, or does that go away? Okay.
You talking about him? Well, make the announcement then. Go ahead, EG. Go ahead. I want to hear it.
We gotta come see you Friday, 4 o'clock.
Y'all saw me enough today. You're
You
good.
said enough for that?
Yeah, it's on our calendar, isn't it? Friday.
Oh, I
Yeah,
do
we'll be
want
there.
to say they did get him and county superintendent, they did a wonderful job.
Oh, please.
She's better than Austin.
Symposium.
That was a great job, Dr. Derry.
Thank you all for
Yeah,
being here.
great report, great morning this morning. So,
We didn't get slammed, by
Did he say those numbers are going to be released? What numbers are going to be released, he said, within the next day or two? The ACAP or the NAEP?
okay, hearing nothing further, we're going to stand adjourned.